Hi, everyone. Welcome to our wonderful discussion and workshop about poetry. It's perfect timing. We're in April. It's Poetry Month. My name is Karen Jakonski. I'm one of the producers at Penguin Random House Audio and Listening Library. And I'm so thrilled to be able to speak today with some wonderfully accomplished poets and writers, Mahogany L Brown, Candice Iloh, and Safia Elhillo. We're going to learn more about them and hear from them in a little bit. First, I wanted to let you all know that this event is being recorded and it will be available later on PRH Audio's YouTube channel. And if at any, I see you're all kind of using the chat area already. If you have questions, please submit them to the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom, and we'll try to take as many questions as we can at the end. I love seeing where you're all from. Colorado, Maryland, San Diego, Los Angeles, Detroit, Hawaii, San Francisco, Chicago, Puerto Rico, Indiana. So welcome from all over the country. I'm really excited to get going. The format is I'll introduce each of our workshop poets, and then they will read for a little bit from their work. And we'll do that for each of them, and then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll open up for questions at the end. I'm very pleased to introduce Mahogany L Brown. She is the artistic director of Urban Word NYC and poetry coordinator at St. Francis College. She received fellowships from Agnes Gund, Cave Canem, Poets House, Mellon Research in Rauschenberg, and she's the author of recent works Chlorine Sky, which I had the privilege of producing the audio edition of, which Mahogany narrated so expertly and beautifully. She also wrote Woke, a Young Poet's Call to Justice, Woke Baby and Black Girl Magic. She's the founder of the Diverse Lit Initiative, Woke Baby Book Fair, and she's so excited to release her newest poetry collection, Responding to the Impact. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Responding to the Impact of Mass Incarceration on Women and Children. It's called I Remember Death by Its Proximity to What I Love, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Mahogany. It's so nice to meet you, and whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear you read from your work, Chlorine Sky.
Thank you, Karen. Good to see and hear you again. My name is Mahogany L Brown. I'm a writer and organizer, and I love thinking about poetry through the lens of YA novel, through that medium. I never thought I would say that, but I'm so happy to be here and share a little bit of Chlorine Sky with you. This is one of my favorite parts. It's a motivational part. Cousin Inga is the older cousin of the protagonist, whose name I will keep a secret, but her nickname is Lil. And while she's a ball player, she also has a tendency of thinking of others more than herself, being loyal to a fault. And this is towards the end of the book when she's finally seeing how to see herself as an individual in the world and really think about what she needs. Inga says, play smarter. You can't beat everyone. Sure, you may outrun someone, but they always catch up. You can outthink someone, but they always catch on. If they box you out, you make a new box. You make them play your game. Think of your team. What are their strengths? What are your strengths? Now, play smart, not small. Think quick, but think good. You have everything you need. Where's the rock? Focus, breathe, sprint, focus, leap, focus, dribble. Where are you? In your head? Nah, you got to be 2 steps ahead of the strongest adversary. Be 2 steps ahead of anyone that tries to put you down because you're a girl. Being a Black girl and a Black girl baller is a whole set of rules you never see coming. Know the rules, so you know which ones you need to break. Are you a baller? Then honor the baller. Play your position. Let your team be a team. Let them be their best selves. Your endurance is not your only ability. Your strength is not to run fast or ball the hardest. Your superpower is to see what your team needs and show up for them. Be agile, because you can. You got to keep swinging, little cousin, because you're the real prize. And those that respect you and love you will keep it 100, won't play you small or play you at all. Remember, somebody sees you. Even when the sky looks pitch black and you can't see the outline of your own hands, even when there are so many moving parts and you can't find the man on your own team, you're never really alone. See, a real leader knows there is no such thing as a one-person team. If you think there is, you've already lost. Everything is a game. Some folks be playing to win the house. Some folks be playing to win the job. Some folks be playing to win the car. Some folks be playing to win the spotlight. Everything is a game to be won, but some of us are playing for things that last longer than material things. Once you figure out what you gaming for, then you can play honest and with integrity. If you show up and show the world your real self, you don't have to wait for others to claim you. You don't have to wait for others to pick you. You pick yourself. I mean, really, choose yourself every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mahogany. That was powerful and beautiful. I look forward to chatting with you about that in a little bit. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce Safia Elhillo. She's the author of the poetry collection, The January Children, which received the 2016 Sillerman First Book Prize for African Poets and a 2018 Arab American Book Award. Sudanese by way of Washington, D.C., she holds an MFA from the New School, a Cave Canem Fellowship, and a 2018 Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation. Safia is a Pushcart Prize nominee, co-winner of the 2015 Brunel International African Poetry Prize, and listed in Forbes Africa's 2018 30 Under 30. She's a 2019 to 2021 Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Welcome, Safia, and we look forward to hearing from you right now.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And Mo and Candice, it is such a pleasure to get to be doing this with you both. Happy birth week to Mahogany. I am going to read some sections from Home is Not a Country, which is my novel in verse. And I think the best use of my time is to just try and introduce you to some of the people that populate the world of the book. America. I go to half-hearted Arabic classes each Sunday in a rented room at the middle school and bleat alif, ba, ta, tha, and agree with Haytham, who sits behind me, that this is like so boring. We never ask why our mothers had come here and could not let it go, though I always beg for the same crumpled photograph stories of weddings that went on for weeks, cafes crowded with poets, gardens lush and humming with mosquitoes. We whisper to each other, if it's so great there, then why don't we ever go back? But I have always listened to the stories, and every day I long. At school, I still do not speak. I wear the same fleece sweatshirt, washed and rewashed. The girl who sits behind me in math came over once to work on a project, told everyone after that it smelled like rice and dirty plants, wondered aloud if my mother was bald under the headscarf. In my silence, I dress myself in yellow and imagine a garden thick with date palms, a girl, mouth open and fluent, who knows where she is from. Nostalgia monster. Haytham calls me a nostalgia monster and likes to laugh at the dream brain that takes over mine when I hear the old songs and run my fingers over the old photographs. I know the words to the old films and imagine myself gliding in to join the dance, glamorous in black and white, photographed in sepia, frozen in a perfect time. I wish our Arabic teacher would tell us more about what it was like back then, before everyone left, when they were young and dreaming and hearing the songs crackling out of a radio. But I cannot imagine him young or dancing, cannot imagine him any way except the way we know him now, scowling over conjugations and how we mispronounce the language, how it wilts on our American tongues. One of my favorites is a Sayyid Khalifa song, where he sings to a girl he calls a pearl necklace, Ya Igdalluli Luli, Ya Biti Ya Hilwa Ya Luli, and says, Wain al Hilween Wain Rahu? Where are the beautiful ones? Where did they go? And I think he means us, all the ones who left, all the gone. Haytham lives in my building, which isn't actually surprising since it seems everyone from our country immigrated to the same block of crowded apartments. It's Saturday morning and he's ringing the doorbell, frantic, and falls inside when I answer, sweaty and rumpled and still in his house shoes, coughing, with a little joke in his eye. His grandmother, opening his t-shirt drawer to put away the laundry, found his secret pack of cigarettes, which he doesn't even really smoke, which he tried to explain away while dodging the slippers aimed at his head. Who knew Mama Fathiya was so athletic? Everything always so funny to him. She chased him out with cries of, disgusting, disgusting. And where else was he going to go? My mother hasn't left yet for work and makes us tea boiled in milk, poured into mismatched mugs, and hands us packs of Captain Majid cookies she gets from the Bigala that Haytham and I call ethnic Walmart, where we buy everything, from bleeding legs of lamb to patterned pillow covers and cassettes covered in a layer of dust. She never seems old enough to be anyone's mother, so pretty and unlined and smelling always of flowers. She clears the cups and wipes the crumbs from the table and our faces in quick movements, pins her scarf around her face and leaves for work. Haytham isn't wearing shoes, so we cannot go outside. We instead spend the day playing our favorite game, calling all our people's typical names out the window into the courtyard. Muhammad, Fatma, Ali, Bidur, to see how many strangers startle and look up when they are called. Baba. I think if he'd lived, my father would have been a famous singer, crooning and preening in a shiny suit, his hair dense and dark, or maybe an artist, throwing clay onto a potter's wheel and shaping creatures from its mass like some sort of smaller god, or maybe an athlete, muscle and vein cording in his still strong legs, a scientist serious in goggles and white, a writer pulling stacks of books from his knotted brain, a television star, his face so familiar he's almost everyone's father, but always mostly mine, coming home in the evenings to swing me up onto his back and run circles until I'm dizzy, holding my hand in his calloused grasp, teaching me the songs he loved, the songs he danced to with my mother, unwidowed and smiling with all her teeth, twirled in the living room, dress billowing over her calves, loved, both of us belonging to someone, tied together by the belonging, by my father, no longer gone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Safia. That was just beautiful, really mesmerizing. Now I'd like to introduce our final speaker, and her name is Candice Iloh. Candice is a first-generation Nigerian-American writer and dancer from the Midwest by way of Washington, D.C. and Brooklyn, New York. She's a proud graduate of Howard University and alumna of the Rhode Island Writers Colony. She received her MFA in creative writing for young people at Lesley University. Her work has earned her fellowships from Lambda Literary in Vona and a residency with High Arts, where she debuted her first one-person show. A 2020 National Book Award finalist and 2021 Prince Award honoree, Everybody Looking is her first novel. Welcome, Candice. It's so nice to have you here. And whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear you read from Everybody Looking.
Hello. I am really happy to be here. I chose to, or before I say that, I'm really happy to be here with Safia and Mahogany. It just feels like an honor to be reading alongside them. Before I even started to perform a lot of my work, I was following them and I was learning from them and watching what they were doing. And so I just feel really happy to be in the same space as them tonight. I wanted to read from a section of Everybody Looking where Ada, the main character, is sort of starting to discover that she is different in what she desires out of a romantic partner, and that this boy that she's been spending time with really isn't it. And just starting to realize that she's different in ways that other people are noticing but she has not noticed or been allowed to notice up until now. But to be chosen by someone was all the right I needed for now. His eyes lasering my lips, him wanting me around. It really didn't matter that I wasn't the only one, that she was in the dorm across the street from mine, that we had never talked about this, that I didn't know how this even went, that the tears came with the truth that all I wanted was to be the only, that all I needed was to be claimed, Dad claimed to know all about how boys were supposed to treat me. If he doesn't treat you better than I treat you, he isn't good enough. But almost always kept good enough to himself, kept his little girl close, kept his little girl blind, kept his little girl wanting to know what better was. I didn't know I could find better than Derek. All I knew was that he liked me, and that was reason enough to hold on, to look the other way when he went to go see her, when he brought me things that weren't mine, when all we did was lay around, when laying around became the only thing I knew, when the only thing I knew was please. To please a boy, answer the phone when he calls, respond when he sends a message, be nice when he is mean, be available when he has time, be available when she rejects him, be available when he is bored, be ready to be drafted when she no longer wants him, even if you are just something to do. He says he likes me because every time he wants to chill, I'm free. And I was thinking how each time he's free, I'm really not. And trapped by the dank of a boy's dorm room, wishing his skin and lips were actually soft, mad at this sad option that looked nothing like what I want, him, what I might be able to have, him, a chance I should be grateful for, him tossing me a bone I reach for because it's the only kind I believe I can reach. Reach, verb, to stretch out an arm in a specified direction in order to touch or grasp something. As in, when I'm bored in Derek's bed, sometimes I reach for my phone to watch dance videos on YouTube. As in, accounting class keeps feeling like gym because every time I reach for the textbook, I suddenly want to sleep. As in, whenever Derek needs something to do, he calls me, but never can be reached when I need someone too. As in, when I saw that girl dancing by herself in the studio that day, I wanted to know if being confident enough to do that is something I could ever reach. A chance is all I've ever wanted. It was all I needed to prove that I wasn't as lame as everyone thought I was. College was like everything else for me, a bunch of firsts, a first time away from home, a first time in a new bed, a first time in new hands, a first time to make a choice on a new campus where every day is a fashion show and everyone is also the smart Black kid in class. Trying to keep up never really works. So I just try to keep myself. The days I tried to look like I knew how to be here, I failed. College at an HBCU was still more groups and more cliques than high school. Either more ways to fit in or be left standing out. Student government, sororities, marching band, athletes, and apparently girls with head-wrapped afros who dance by themselves wearing oversized t-shirts, and empty studios had a place around here too. I didn't know what boys wanted, but I liked to wear t-shirts and cargo shorts to class. The occasional joke about being on the other team was silly anyway. I didn't know there was other teams, wondering how one gets on the other team without knowing how to play. What's wrong with a girl wanting to be comfortable? What's wrong with keeping what I had to myself? Aren't us girls all on the same team? But it seemed like everyone knew how to play this game. Everyone but me. I already knew I was nothing like the other girls, walking around like they could fit their mama's clothes. My hips didn't sway like that. My breasts were nearly non-existent. Is this what the boys want? Their mamas? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candice. That was, I just have to say, just reading from the comments in the chats, that was a wow moment, definitely. That was so good and so wonderful. Thank you. I'd love to hear from you all about what your origin story is in terms of how you came to writing and poetry in particular. Mahogany, can you talk about how you started, and did you ever have a moment where you just kind of knew that this was what you wanted to do?
I think since elementary school, honestly, I was really in love with books and writing. I would fall into hours and hours at the library. I did take books from the library, but I did volunteer to pay back all of the books that I took. Um, so writing has really been a part of my blood since like fourth grade. Poetry was different though. Poetry didn't come until I was 21. So yeah,
How did
I,
that, how did
I
that
think it
come
was
about?
because my junior year in high school during AP Lit class, we had an assignment to remake a classic, remix
Hmm.
it, and I chose to remix it with NWA lyrics,
Hmm.
and it was admonished. I was like told I would not be getting a grade if I did not do better and do something that was valid using real English. So I just was turned off from that completely. And I was about 16, 17. So when I saw it again at the age of 21 in Oakland, California, at this really cool space that no longer exists called Dorsey's Locker, um, I thought, oh, they sound like me. They're talking about the neighborhood I'm from, the family I know, and everyone understands. Like it was a universal acknowledgement of being, and that was it. That's all I needed. I haven't stopped sharing poems, writing poems, being poetry since.
I'm so glad to hear that you kind of were able to move past that negative feedback you got as a high schooler. I mean, for some people, that's all it takes, right? You know, it's just to hear that that kind of feedback that just stops them in their tracks, and you know, and then they feel like that they shouldn't do something. So I think we're all very lucky that you worked your way, you found your way.
Thank
Safia,
you.
what about you? What was your origin story of becoming a writer?
Um, I think I like, so I had a bajillion hobbies as a kid. I had like general creative impulse, but I couldn't really find a form for it that could keep my attention for more than a couple of weeks. So I would be like really into drawing for a second and then like would buy like yarn and knitting needles and be like, I knit now. And then 2 weeks later, abandon it. Much to the frustration of my mom, who just watched all this stuff accumulate. And then with the poetry, I think the reason it stuck is not because I felt like this jolt of magic go through me and I'm like, oh, I'm so good at this. It was the community aspect of it. I think I was a young person who was very, very hungry for community and who, you know, it's I think lonely being an artsy teen. Um, and I remember I just started getting into poetry, and a friend of mine at the time was also like kind of writing these little poems. We weren't really showing them to each other, but we just knew we were writing our little poems together. And she invited me to come to an open mic with her at Busboys and Poets in Washington, D.C., which is where I grew up. And that was where the magic happened. Not when I got up to read myself, but just seeing all of these like incredible weirdos who all were like wearing something really interesting and all seemed to know each other and love each other and be in such community with each other. And I was like, I want to hang out with those people. I want to keep being like afforded entry into this space. And if what buys me entry into the space is to write a poem, I'll write 10,000 poems. Just like, please letting me keep coming here.
Candice, what about you, Candice?
I started writing poems. I think it was my sophomore year in college, and it was a catharsis thing. I was in a study group in for an accounting class, which I absolutely hated. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And one of the people in my study group was a poet. Like she was known on campus for being the poetry girl because she had been like on MTV as a poet. And she just, it sounds really cliche when I bring this story up, but she was just like, yeah, like when I am really frustrated or I'm really mad about something, I write poems. And she was just like, maybe you should try writing a poem, because I think she was seeing that I was about to cry. Um,
Mhm.
And you know how a lot of people do, like they see you're about to get emotional, so they rush to stop you somehow, like, or to give you something to stop you from
Yeah.
going there. And yeah, she gave me a notebook and she was just like, why don't we like take a break and you write a poem, just try it out. And I tried it out. I'm pretty sure it was like one of the worst poems I've ever written, but um, it felt great to do it. It felt great to like have something that would allow me to express my frustrations and no one could object. Like no one could tell me that what I was writing down was wrong. And then from there, like similar to what Safia was talking about, like I started to go to open mics and realize that there was a whole community of people who do this every week. Like they write poems about things that get on their nerves or frustrate them or overwhelm them, and then they go share it with each other, and people support them and dap them up when they come off the stage and like, you know, give them feedback. And it just opened up a world to me that I have not left since.
Going along those lines of performance, I'd love to hear your thoughts about, you know, when you're writing, are you writing and reading aloud? Are you performing as you write? Is it what is the connection between writing and performing? And then along those lines, since you've all narrated your audiobooks, how is that experience different from the way you usually perform your work? Safia, do you mind starting off?
Um, so I think performance has always been kind of inextricably tied up in the process of making a poem for me.
Okay.
I started out in performance. My training, my like most of my formal training is in performance. I was on slam teams since I was a teenager,
Hmm.
all the way through the end of college. And so it's one of the things that I'm thinking about as I'm making a poem. It's one of the steps in my editing process is to read the poem out loud to myself and hear if something catches or doesn't come out right or if I'm stumbling. And I think because, you know, I went on later to like get an MFA and be in kind of more academic poetry spaces that I think maybe taught me less than the performance spaces had taught me. Because at this point, as a writer, my ear is so much older than my eye. And so if something is not right, I will usually be able to catch it by hearing it out loud before I'm ever going to catch it just by reading it
Hmm.
like silently in my head on the page. And so it's one of my most valuable tools as a writer. And then the audiobook was a little different just because I was telling you all this earlier, is the longest I have ever heard myself speak out loud in my life. And it, you know, I don't know that I ever wanted to know myself so well. It, I was like, is that really what my voice sounds like? Is that really how I pronounce that word? Do I really have these 10,000 accents? So this is just like, over the course of however many hours it just was like me and my own voice in this hushed studio. So it was different. I'm glad to have been able to do it because it, again, all of these poems before I recorded the audiobook, before anything, as I was writing them, I was hearing them out loud. So it was very important to me to get to like show that other like very important side of the life of these poems because it I think is like an incomplete picture if these poems aren't heard because
Hmm.
that's, you know, a word is a unit of sound for me before it's anything else. You know, a consonant is percussion, a vowel is melody, and so
Hmm.
that's, I think, the only way I really know how to think about poetry in a way that makes sense to me. um, so the audiobook felt like a way to just make sure that I was making that known.
Did you listen to your audiobook when it was done?
I did not listen to
No.
my audiobook. I personally do not want to hear my own voice from like outside for
Hmm.
that long. I, you know, have enough time with my like running internal monologue all the time.
Candice, what about you?
So yeah, I have similar feelings around poems. Whenever I've written any poem, I need to hear it out loud. because the rhythm is important to me. Coming
Mhm.
from an open mic poetry community, how things sound really matters. And so in reading poems out loud, that's when I can tell if it's sticking or not.
Mhm.
And if it sounds the way that I want it to sound. And also, I read poems out loud just for myself. Like, it is an affirming practice to
Mm.
read a poem out loud, whether it be mine or someone else's. Just because I really do feel like words are super powerful. And when I say them out loud, I get to feel the embodiment of them, and I get to feel them come alive. And it's a different experience that is a part of the entire writing experience for me. And when I recorded the audiobook, before I recorded the audiobook, I thought it was going to be way easier than it was, because I had this background, like, oh, like, I have to be the one that reads my book. It can't be somebody else. Like, no one could do it like me. And then after the third day, I was just over talking. I thought I sounded way worse than I did. I actually did listen to like the first 5 to 7 minutes of it, and I was impressed, because I just, like, it being in a recording studio and being recorded that way is so different. Like,
Yeah.
what those people do, like the engineers, it's magical. And I was really moved to hear myself sound that way, but I will probably never listen to the entire book. It's completely unnecessary. I've had a lot of friends who read it and also listened to it. They said it was a great experience to read and listen at the same time.
Mhm.
And if I was still teaching, that's how I would teach a verse novel. But that experience was really taxing, really exhausting. I felt hypercritical of myself. I felt like I was making all kinds of mistakes, and the engineer was like, "No, like, we could do it over again if you want to, but that was fine." So it was complicated, but I'm really glad that I went through that process.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable experience, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I think the outcome, we're always our own worst critics, right? I think the outcome, what you ended up doing, is really just terrific. Mahogany, what about you on this question?
I feel like they both said everything I want to say.
Okay.
Truly. Outside of the fact that I have both of their books and I listen to both of their audiobooks. I'm a voice artist as well, so that process wasn't that painful for me,
Mhm.
outside of like personal issues. When I was recording it, a cousin of mine had just passed away, and I found out like as they were turning my mic on,
Oh,
if you remember being logged in that day. But when I think about my poems and how sound impacts the page, I'm always curious by people who are like, oh, that's a poem for the page and not the stage. And as someone who has experienced in my entire poetry life on stage, I make sure that there is no difference, right?
mhm.
So even when I've gone to these really amazing workshops led by like Kevin Young and Nikki Finney and all the greats, and I'm writing these pieces, I'm always writing with music within the lines, right? Even if it's a space, if it's a tab, that's the breath work. I'm telling you how to breathe while you're reading. And for someone to say, oh, that's spoken word, my response is always, no, it's a poem. I just speak it well. There's, like, you don't have to reduce it to think that there is no craft in the writing of this
Mhm.
piece. There is craft in it. And so much so that, like these two amazing artists, we are thinking of both receiving methods as you hear it, as you read it, also as you feel it. Yeah. So I'm always reading the poem. I'm looking at the page, and I'm making sure that that space in the piece gives you breath control. And as a child of hip hop, it feels not only like an obligation, but kind of like, that's just like the blueprint to my living. So
Thank you. And I'm sorry to hear about your loss during that time. Yeah, it's very hard to just kind of shut that out when you need to perform. I'm really sorry to hear that. Mahogany, I want to open it up now to some of these fabulous questions that we have coming in from our participants. And I think since we're talking about performance, I'm going to just throw one of these questions to you, Mahogany.
Okay.
How do you encourage, or what kind of advice do you have for people who are nervous about presenting their poetry or performing it at an open mic or another venue? How do you get over that, if you ever do, or how do you just do your best?
I love that question because it never gets old.
Mhm.
I am nervous every single time I step to the stage, every single time I'm sharing a poem. And what I used to tell my students or even my slam team people is that you use that to your advantage. That is your blood telling you how to speak, how to slow down, when to keep the pace up. The way anxiety can feel in a body is the same way that it transfers as energy when you're speaking the poem. So when the audience is hearing you, their heart is beating that fast too,
Yeah.
or they're getting those goosebumps too. So don't try and, quell it or ignore it or pretend it's not happening, because it is, and it can really be the barometer for how your poem is shared, received. I love it. At this point, I realize like this means I'm alive. You know what I mean? Like this means I'm telling the truth. This means I have something at stake, and as long as that is happening, then that means I'm on the right path.
Thank you. And before we move on to someone else, I just have to ask you, Mahogany, a question from Nicole. She said, Mahogany loves head wraps. Where do you get them?
So they're African print. Usually this one specifically is from Australia. Otherwise I'll get them from like wherever I go. So when I was in Curacao, I went and got a couple of yards. Brazil, I got a couple of yards. Antigua, I got a couple of yards. And because I live in Brooklyn, the best planet on earth, go right down the street to Flatbush. You're good. They got you covered.
Safia, what's the best piece of writing advice you've ever received? And then another part of this question from Allie is, do you have any favorite spoken word poets?
The best piece of writing advice that I think is like what has shaped me as a writer uh, is that you should always be reading more than you're writing. I think the only reason I know anything about my own voice as a writer is because I am deeply familiar with my taste as a reader. And so I'm like, okay, here's what I respond to in other people's work. So I should be trying that in my own work because these are the things that I assign value to. These are the things that are exciting to me. These are the tools that I feel like are best suited to communicate the thing that I'm trying to communicate. Um, and so usually whenever I sit down to write and I feel stuck, that's usually a sign that I haven't been reading enough poetry before trying to sit down and write poetry. I love novels and I feel like that's usually my like pleasure reading. But if I'm not reading poetry consistently, then there's like nothing is going to come out when I try and sit down to write kind of without fail at this point. And so I think it like it keeps the toolbox sharp, and it also I think keeps in sight for me what it is that I am aspiring to. You know, there's that Ira Glass quote about how when you first get started making art, like your taste is here and your abilities are here, and you're like trying to match up your skills to your taste. But it's a lifelong process. You know, your skills start to go up here and your taste goes over here. So I think I'm always like trying to chase down that which feels magical to me in reading poems by other people, and so I need to like constantly remind myself of how magical it is by reading poems by other people. um Favorite spoken word poets. I don't know that I need to make the distinction, but I think some of my favorite poets are also some of my favorite people to see read their poems. They really like make it worth your while to go out and see them instead of just sitting alone in a room with their books. So I love Angel Nafis. I love Hanif Abdurraqib. I love Kimon Felix. I love Fatima Asghar. I love Kaveh Akbar. I love Araceli Skirmay. I love Shira Ehrlichman. I love Mahogany Brown. I love Candice Iloh. I love Elizabeth Acevedo and Clint Smith. So many. And I feel like we all kind of are in community with each other in that we all have these backgrounds in performing in some way, but also are like deeply interested in the project of making books and of like not trying to enforce the idea that these are things that exist on opposite sides of some kind of weird fake binary.
Mhm.
And so it, I think, feels very important to me to see the like this community and this body of work come together, because it, like, it's all craft when it comes down to it. Like the choices that someone is making when they are like reading a poem out loud to you, those are craft choices. The choices the person is making when they're figuring out like what words to put down on a piece of paper in what order, those are all craft choices. And
Mhm.
those people that I named, I think, make very stunning craft choices that I feel like I learn from all the time.
Candice, did you approach your book and your ideas knowing that you would write it as a novel in verse, or how did you all kind of land on, okay, this is the format for this story I want to tell?
So Everybody Looking came to me as a verse novel because I didn't know how to write a regular novel. Like I came from, a poetry background, and I knew that I wanted to tell a larger story. And then I was introduced to the idea of novels in verse when I learned about Jacqueline Woodson's Brown Girl Dreaming.
Mhm.
And when I read it, I was like, oh, so I can write a novel in the way that I know how to write. Excellent. Let me go with that. And essentially, it was just kind of explained to me that a verse novel is a series of poems that kind of connect and become a larger story. And I read a whole bunch of verse novels as I was writing it and as I was preparing to write it. And what I did discover is that there are a lot of verse novels out there that aren't written so much so poetically.
Mhm.
They're just chopped down to look like poems. And I was really obsessed with each poem standing alone. Like, my ego would not allow me to do it any other way. And so I was really, from the beginning, I just was like, I want all the poems in the book to be great. I don't necessarily know how to go from beginning to end in this like big like book format, but I do know how to write a poem. I do know the themes that I want to be in this book. And as you know, as a lot of people who read it discover, it's nonlinear, and
Mhm.
it came to me in that way as well, because that's how my brain works. That is how trauma oftentimes works.
Mhm.
Um, and I was trying to make connections between who the main character is or was like as a older kid, and then how they were when they were a child. And so it just seemed like poems was the best way to tell a story like this one, because poems can be kind of moved around like puzzle pieces, and
Mhm.
also poems can do a lot with one poem. Like, I've always respected the craft of poetry because you can say so much with so little, and brevity is my jam. I really love to like cut to the chase. I don't like to use a whole lot of words, even when I'm writing prose. It's exhausting to me to do that. Um, the short answer is that this is how it came to me. It was the only way that I knew how to tell a story at the time. So it's the only thing that made sense.
That just kind of, I'm looking at another question that kind of pairs perfectly with what you just said, Candice. The person who asked it is named Kushbu. I apologize if I'm not getting the name right, but they want to know, how do you fit every emotion and puzzle piece so perfectly without overdoing it or overselling the point? Everyone's work is so inspiring. How do you finally feel confident in your work to stop trying to rewrite over and over and over again? I mean, that's a really good question. Like, how do you know when, okay, this is enough? Mahogany, can you speak to that?
Dang, I was waiting for them to go. If I'm honest, and I try to be, I don't think there is perfection. Like, it just isn't. If you heard me reading, and I learned this from Liz, talking with Liz Acevedo. Sometimes you're reading and you're like, why is this word here? Why did I use this word? I wouldn't usually use this. And so I'll just edit it. And I started doing that within the last couple of weeks, where I was like, oh, that does feel better, just in performing it and knowing that even if it's on the page now, it may not be perfection. The only thing that matters to me, specifically writing a novel in verse, was exploring these different themes like a human would, observing, being like, feeling disenfranchised, feeling disjointed, feeling kind of out of it. Did I see what I see? Like, really allowing myself to have these contradictions happening and not resolve it. As long as I didn't resolve everything, like, here's a perfect bow, Disney, then I'm fine, I'm good. Because really, I just want us to start having a conversation of who are we in the world? If we see something happening, do we stand up? Do we not? Are we bullies? Are we the Laylee? Are we the Inga? Sometimes we're both.
Mm-hmm.
How do we really reckon with how do we reckon with being both hero and villain in our lives? And that's the constant question that I wanted to answer, and it doesn't allow perfection to exist side by side.
Thank you. Safia, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Can you repeat the questions for me? I'm so sorry.
I think I should have done that. Sorry. The question was, when do you ever feel like what you've done is enough and it's ready to go out into the world? Or like, how do you get to that point where you're confident enough to just kind of, hit send, so to speak?
That is still a lifelong process. I still, love to take a draft into the double digits. But I think I wish I knew who to attribute this to, but I recently heard some very helpful writing advice, which is that your poem is done when everything additional you do to it makes it worse. So that's been very helpful to me, to be like, why can't I get it right? And then it helps that I like keep every draft of everything, even if I'm just changing one word across it. So then I can go back and look and be like, wow, actually, this poem was great 4 drafts ago. What's wrong with me? But I think sometimes I need to let myself go a little bit beyond the finishing point, just to make sure that it doesn't actually want to like be in a prose block or something. And I think just like giving myself the space and time to play. There's no rush, I like don't have to finish the poem right now if I don't want to. So I can keep trying new stuff until I feel satisfied or exhausted or ready to move on to some other poem. But it does help me to like now know to pay attention to like, when was the last time that I did something to this poem that felt helpful? Was it 3 weeks ago? Okay, I've taken the drafts too far.
I think we're gonna just probably wrap it up. Maybe we could go around, and I would love to hear from each of you briefly about what do you want the participants to feel about poetry, and take away about poetry if they're reluctant to, get started themselves, what as a way of self-expression, and just, I think poetry, a lot of the comments have, poetry's maybe gotten a bum rap, in the past. Do you feel like that's changing? I certainly do. What is your take on poetry now and in the future? And is it different from the past? Candice?
That was like so many questions at once.
I'm so sorry.
I guess I'm going to start with what you first said, which was like takeaways, I guess, for someone who is maybe feeling like it's a challenge to write poems or enter writing poems. I think like some advice that I was given years ago is like a prerequisite for writing is having something to say. And so I think what I'd want to say to someone who wants to write poems is to figure out what it is that you have to say, and to just begin by saying it. Like a lot of my old poems begin with nonsense sentences or nonsense lines or just my feelings. And I think that I'm seeing poetry change a lot. Like what was called a poem back when I had started writing poems. I've seen so many other things happen since then. What we define as a poem is just, it's just so many things now, and I feel like I'm really proud of that. It makes me really proud of like the writers that are coming up right now and their inventiveness. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like there is less reason to be intimidated surrounding poetry, because I feel like there's a lot of new forms that have been developed. There's a lot of new ways to enter a poem. There are a lot of ways to be poetic, and I think that pairing the fact that you have something to say with all of these ways to say it, poetry or the community of poetry just still feels very welcoming. It feels like there's just so many ways to do it. And I even, like, I was speaking to a friend just the other day who was afraid, who told me that they were afraid to call something that they wrote a poem, because of what they had studied or seen be called a poem. And I looked at it as a poem because I just saw these devices happening in it. I saw these choices that they made. And speaking to what like Safia said earlier, there's a lot to be said just about the choices that are being made. Like what shapes a poem is the choices. And the like, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that there's just so many ways to enter. And that I hope that that would be a guide to a person who wants to write a poem, that like there is not just this one way to do it. And the way that we were taught originally, these dead old white guys writing poems being like the standard, that's long gone. And I feel like a lot of particularly Black and Brown poets have just shown me that there is a lot of ways to just use the way that I speak as a way to enter the poem. So I hope that that's like a guide to whoever wants to do this.
Thank you so much. I think those are really just perfect words to end on. Safia, Mahogany, did you want to add anything to what Candice was saying about, I guess, the accessibility of poetry? Just encouraging people to take that step.
I would say listen to Candice whenever you can, but also if you don't write your story, who will? And we know what happens when other people try to tell the story of someone else, specifically marginalized voices. Even if you don't share it, just write it. It becomes a time capsule, and it is an archive for those that love you to know what was happening when you were there, alive. But otherwise, listen to Candice, always.
Safia, any final words?
I think just because you might not necessarily have found a poem that speaks to you or your identity or your life experience doesn't mean that your identity or life experience or whatever is not deserving of literature. It's just, you got to write that poem now. And it's always been helpful to me. I think, an unhelpful narrative that I grew up with for a time as a younger poet was that you always have to be in pain to be able to write poetry. Turns out that's not true. I'm fine, and here I am still writing poems. And I think it helps to just write towards what you're curious about and what you think is interesting and what you think is fascinating and what you think might be fun to try, instead of sitting there and being like, let me mind my wound. Like what hurts? What should I, that's, I think, is like a way to write poetry. And I think it can be very like cathartic and very helpful. But I think if that's the only way, it veers into tricky territory that kind of sets up the formula that your trauma is the most interesting thing about you. And I don't think that's true. I think your interests and your fascinations and your curiosities are the most interesting thing about you. And so that, I think, is always the more helpful and sustainable thing to write towards.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Penguin Random House Audio and Listening Library, I want to thank you, Candice, Safia, Mahogany, and congratulate you on the recent publications of your wonderful books. I'm sure that everyone here and the people who watch on YouTube will be really inspired by what you've shared. And thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank
Really,
you.
really amazing. Thank you so much and have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.